Story 1. The skill to get over the fear of failing and just trying. Most times, you will find it is easier than you thought it was going to be. The hardest part is just getting over the fear of trying and failing. Most things are easier than you think. Story 2. Overall, just focus on eating healthy and exercising. Most people don't know where to start or how to diet and exercise, which is why we spend lots of money on physical trainers and dieting apps. Story 3. The very basics of personal finance. The entire range between people with revolving credit card debt telling me they want to build an emergency fund, all the way up to very smart, wealthy friends who give away 1% of their wealth every year just for an advisor to put them into a generic mutual fund. I want to rip my hair out. Story 4. Financial planning and the power of compounding. Many people get into a hole from credit card debt or other kinds of loans when they are young and have to spend their lives digging themselves out. If you put $1,000 in a Standard & Poor's 500 index getting 10% when you are young and let it sit for 50 years, it will grow to $117,000. Story 5. General troubleshooting skills. Many people have simple issues with their phones, cars, or things in everyday life, and they post on Reddit about what's wrong or why something isn't working instead of typing it into Google, which usually gives the correct answer immediately. It blows my mind how people simply can't think for themselves. Story 6. Cooking. I am amazed that I am one of the few in my circle of friends who knows how to properly cook and prepare meals. Most of my friends do not know how, and some are so bad that I had to eat unseasoned pasta once. Yes, just plain old pasta. Story 7. Cooking. I think it's because cooking shows and a lot of recipes are overly complicated. Lots of people would have no idea how to cook a chicken breast, some rice, and steamed vegetables. It doesn't have to be a gourmet meal. Story 8. Majority worldwide cannot swim. Most of them are women. Swim by all accounts. Okay, it's not an overwhelming majority, but it's surprising coming from my little bubble of poor to middle-class America where everyone, rich or poor, got local wealthy benefactor-funded swimming lessons for a period of years in elementary and middle school. I never really thought about how Ruby and Cecil, our local benevolent couple doing this, were possibly not replicated in other areas. One of our kids actually nearly drowned during the lessons, which sort of showed how they were so valuable. He didn't have any idea of how to really swim in spite of paddling around in the perfectly safe 3-foot-deep excuse for a local lake near our town until he got classes paid for by a rich couple. Story 9. Fluency in another language. I am talking immersion-level fluency. Most people learn for 2 years in high school or college and do not go beyond that. They earn the grade. But with Duolingo and other applications, everyone had the opportunity to learn Spanish or other languages while President Biden was in office and can leave the country right now. I will be gone in 3 months to Japan to teach English. Story 10. Home organizing. Not considered a real skill yet, but the truth is an average household holds thousands of items, and probably half of them go unused and are stored away. Given the housing prices in many parts of the world, people pay a lot for their clutter. Story 11. Communicating. I always thought talking is a soft skill. Now that I am 40, I realize there are plenty of hard skills involved, such as how to formulate your thoughts in order to convey what you want others to understand. It's a good mental exercise for critical thinking as well. You learn to paint a clearer picture and support your own arguments to yourself so as to not just go through the motions in life. Story 12. Basic math and everyday finances. Basic social and cooking skills. And most importantly, the window of tolerance. Learn to regulate their feelings by being inside the window of tolerance. Story 13. Basic mechanical skills. Many people can barely comprehend how a screw or bolt works. I've seen people fail to understand that sometimes a nut is needed to fasten something, let alone how to change a tire or any basic do-it-yourself task, like hanging a shelf or television. Story 14. Critical thinking. I took a class in college, and it has been such a useful skill in questioning what is told to me and how to challenge things people say or write. Story 15. I would have to say how to stay curious and continue learning. There is barely a day that goes by where I don't learn at least one new thing. Can be big, can be small, but there is always something, a new skill or fact I didn't know yesterday. The amount of knowledge and skill you can gain over a lifetime is staggering. I have made a considerable amount of money simply because I know how to find the information I need. From basic coding, information technology support, woodworking, plumbing, electrical work, negotiating, sewing, cooking, baking, vehicle repair, etc. The best part is I never get bored. There is always an opportunity to learn, practice, observe, or teach. And that's pretty cool. Story 16. Not a skill but knowledge. When it comes to things like finances, loans, insurance, healthcare, and coverage of your insurance, pensions, savings, investments, and taxes, most people in fact, get stressed about them. They avoid actually learning about them, instead throwing their hands up and declaring, "I don't know about that stuff," and usually look for someone else to take care of things for them, like their parents initially, or a friend who supposedly knows about them, or worse yet, professionals or employees in the relevant institutions whose interests may not always align. They may put off having to learn about that stuff their entire lives, but this is very risky for several reasons, namely that you can ruin yourself and get into a bad situation that was avoidable, or you may even be taken advantage of. It takes a few afternoons to learn the basics about all that stuff. It's really not that big of a deal. I've seen people in all stages of their lives having serious problems because they actively avoided taking some time to read into them when they had that time and weren't pressured, only for them to scramble to try to make up for it when it was too late. You do not want to start learning about loans when you've signed your name on one already and debt collectors are calling you every day. You do not want to start learning about health insurance and coverage when you're already in the hospital. You do not want to start learning about taxes after you've been overcharged for something that may very well be a mistake. I think you get the picture. I've seen people sign themselves into loans that more or less destroyed their lives. I've seen people scramble to make sense of things in their 50s and 60s because, for example, their spouse died and they never took interest in their shared finances. I've seen people scramble to make sense of their coverage after they're neck deep in bills at the hospital. Do not put off these things. Take the time to learn while you're not pressured. The information is out there and easily accessible. It's not as difficult as it seems initially. Story 17. What back in the day would have fallen under home economics? Cooking, making ingredients and leftover stretch, basic first aid and medical care, sewing and mending, budgeting, how to clean different surfaces and materials, etc. Story 18. Making healthy food choices. How to cook in general. How to spot propaganda and misinformation. How to invest money, specifically the time value of money. Basic vehicle and household maintenance. Story 19. Debate. Learning how to properly form arguments and speak from a position, even if you do not agree with it, to expand your understanding of multiple viewpoints. Also, acceptance of being wrong. There is nothing wrong with learning. It does not have to be a shameful act. Story 20. How to take care of yourself. By this I mean paying your own bills, keeping up with your own appointments, being where you are supposed to be when you are supposed to be there, and so on. In my opinion, you need to know how to do all these things before you get into an adult relationship. Story 21. Based on the police body camera videos I have watched, emotional regulation is important. That goes for both police officers and suspects. It is amazing to me how someone can turn a simple traffic stop into an arrest. Story 22. Not having an opinion about everything. As I have grown older, I have realized I genuinely don't know anything. If I don't know something, I can't have an opinion about it. It frees up so much time and energy for other more important pursuits, like learning about something instead of arguing about it. Story 23. Critical thinking seriously changes the entire way you see the world. I grew up in a very religious area and was very sheltered. It was not until I got out of that place and had some critical thinking classes in college that I realized how incredibly incorrect my entire perception of the world was. I never realized I was religiously brainwashed until then. Story 24. How to search for information effectively. I'm a semi-retired teacher. I can't count how many students from high school through college have no idea how to change their search string based upon what their current one returned to refine their results. So many try one string, and if it doesn't give them what they are looking for, they give up and ask on Reddit in general subreddits like this one. Story 25. Emotion regulation. Specifically how to process disappointment, shame, fear, and regret so they can more readily take accountability, grow, and have a greater capacity for joy. Story 26. My stepfather's best friend passed away, and all he said was, "Fat Joe died." I knew 3 Fat Joes at the time. One was a Cuban with a glass eyeball. My entire family abandoned me because they immediately called every other Fat Joe, asking if they had passed away, not realizing I know more than 4 people in this world. Story 27. Emotional intelligence. It allows for better personal well-being and interpersonal relationships. Unfortunately, many people lack it and do not even consider emotional intelligence to be a valuable skill. Story 28. Walking away from an argument, even if it makes the opposing side feel like they won, is better. It's more worthwhile to spend your time doing things that truly matter than to spend it on someone who mentally can't comprehend anything except their own feelings and opinions. Story 29. Sewing. I am majoring in a field where I have to suture openings in the skin, not the healthcare field, and I have very poor hand-eye coordination. I never learned to sew, so now I am learning in my young adult years. Story 30. Being honest is a skill. Everybody lies is true by definition, but not as a universal constant, because it is possible to go long periods of time without lying, even years. One should always tell the truth, and if one cannot due to circumstances of inconvenience, one should not give an answer, or should give an answer that is technically true without divulging undesirable details. Even some really special gifted intelligence agents working undercover do not lie, because they make their cover not just a backstory, but they live it so that it is technically true. Remember, hiding is not the same as deceiving. Making a fact hidden is different from twisting it, pulling it out of an unpleasant situation, and manipulating others. Lastly, mastering the art of honesty will improve your life more than tenfold in more ways than one can imagine. Deception is very difficult, and only military experts are proficient at this. It requires tremendous mental dexterity, high general intelligence, superhuman memory, and strong conviction. Any civilian attempts will be mediocre and result in negative consequences. In the military, deception or lying to the enemy, which means engaging with the enemy in some form and deliberately lying to their metaphorical face in order to achieve an outcome because you do not know how else to beat them, is the least favored option, as the best strategy in any book is to remain hidden and take the enemy by surprise. Story 31. Making rope out of plant fiber and lighting fires with the method of twisting a stick on a board. If you ever get in the worst-case scenario, these 2 things will surely help you survive. Story 32. I think it's always important to be capable in every way you can. Whether it's cooking, cleaning, or building, even if you know the basics, there's always more to learn. Heck, I've been trying to learn to drive a manual more even though we mostly have automatic cars. Why? Because our truck is manual, and I can't expect my partner to drive me around every time I need to haul something my automatic can't carry. I do push the limit on what that poor thing can carry, though. Story 33. How to make fire with only found natural materials. Literal caveman business. Every man thinks they can do it, but 99% cannot. The mastery of fire is what separates us from the animals. I teach a survival class and have had 1 student out of almost 2,000 pull it off on the first try. It's a very big hit to a man's ego when they find out nature would fold them up in less than a week. Story 34. How to pleasure your partner to the maximum. Why so vanilla? I am not at all gay, but I did experiment with a guy one time. I was not turned on at all, but gave the guy an incredible experience. I edged several times and worked it like my life depended on it. I wish someone would put that effort into sex with me. Story 35. This question pops up day after day. This is literally twice in 2 minutes that I've seen it. I'll say the same thing I always do, and as usual, it'll get completely ignored. To physically defend themselves. Story 36. One of the problems with cooking is that it requires a number of mandatory skills that some people struggle with, such as timing, for instance. I still, after years of cooking, struggle with the time food will be ready, even when using a recipe. Understanding terminology has been mentioned. What is a skillet? Is it a particular size of frying pan? My favorite with American recipes is the idea of the pinch. I finally found out that you can buy a set of measuring spoons for these tiny amounts that these recipes have. My husband struggles with the multitasking element that is often needed. Story 37. I grew up in a small town in Iowa. Damn near all my peers, females included, can change a tire, change oil, so start a fire, look at the stars at night and orient north, look at the sun during the day and orient north, and build shelter in some capacity. I live in the city now, and no one knows anything. Story 38. How to make love. In any profession, there are books, tools, diagrams, and revelations. Most just barely skim the surface and have no idea on where, what, or how. Bunny rabbits have confidence. Confidence and expertise are not the same. Story 39. There are plenty. Changing a flat tire or even adding air, changing motor oil, painting walls and doors, writing a complete sentence free of spelling and grammatical errors, and knowing how to calculate interest.